Hello and welcome back to another episode of The Brain Changers. I'm Rebecca. It's good to have you here. And today's episode is one that I've really been looking forward to because we're talking about something that's often overlooked in the wellness world, and that is the real connection between our minds and our bodies. And we've been talking about the mind-body connection over the last few episodes. More specifically today, we're talking about the small but mighty player at the center of it all, and that is the vagus nerve. Now, if you're thinking to yourself, the vagus, what now? Don't worry, that once was me too. I'd never heard of it. But trust me, by the end of this episode, you're going to understand why this one nerve has such a big impact on how we think, feel, digest, sleep, and even heal. So, to help us unpack all of this in a really grounded, practical way, I am joined by the wonderful Emily Maddern. Now, Emily has a pretty impressive resume, if I'm honest, and she keeps topping it up. Most recently, at the moment, she's actually studying for her master's in naturopathic medicine. But in a nutshell, Emily is a naturopath. She has a special interest in gut health, hormone balance, sports nutrition, and the impacts of stress on health. So you know why I love talking to Emily, because we often talk about stress on our podcast. Now, Emily is the founder of Praxis Blooming, her naturopathic practice in West Lakes here in Adelaide. Now, I am one of Emily's clients, been working with her probably for about the last 6 months. And one of the things I love about Em is that she brings this beautiful integrated approach to healing. So she blends science, nature, and brings her wisdom about the nervous system to help her clients reconnect with their bodies and build real resilience from the inside out. And what I also love about Em is that she is a record-holding powerlifter. So we might ask you a little bit about that later on, Em. But for now, welcome to the Brain Changers. Welcome to the Brain Changers, a podcast about learning how to revolutionize the way you think and live by mastering your mind. We're your hosts, mother and daughter duo, Rebecca and Yvonne King from Moonbeam Monday. Our goal is to empower you to live the life you choose by teaching you how to retrain your brain. Some people tell us it sounds like mind control, and it is, but not the way you might think. This is about you taking control of your own mind, rather than letting your mind control you, so you can choose to live a life free from the expectations of others. No matter what you've experienced in the past, you can create positive change and transformation by learning how to master your mind. We know this because we've done it. Between us, we've survived cancer and stroke and eliminated debilitating anxiety and depression. We've turned our pain into purpose through the power of our mind, and we're now here to support and guide you to do the same. In this podcast, we share valuable insights about how your brain works, why you think, say, and do the things you do, how to begin the process of change, and why it's necessary. Because we know that when you change your mind, you change your life. Thanks for joining us. Let's go.
Thanks for having me, Beck. What a wonderful introduction.
You're welcome. Well, it's actually hard to fit all of your accomplishments into a very short intro, but there you go. I've tried to do it.
You did very well.
So thanks for being with us today, Em. So look, as you know, our listeners are quite varied, right? We speak to and work with men and women in all stages of life. So I want to start off with a bit of a big picture overview or question. So what does the mind-body connection really mean to you as a naturopath? And why do you think it's so important that we understand it?
Mind-body connection is the soul of naturopathy. So it's essentially understanding that the way we think and the way we feel has an effect on our health and our bodies, and that you can't treat one without treating the other. They work in sync. And I think, that's where the vagus nerve comes into it.
Yeah. Yeah. So actually, tell us a little bit about that. When we brought that up in the introduction, and you've mentioned it right now. So can you tell us a little bit about what are we talking about when we talk about the vagus nerve?
The vagus nerve is being talked about a lot more on social media and just in pop culture, because it's the body's superhighway, essentially. So it's it's the 10th cranial nerve. It connects our brain to our internal organs. So it's very valuable for the way our gut-brain axis. So that's also a term that's talked about a lot. So not only is it communicating our thoughts with our gut and our internal organs, in the reverse action, it's channeling messages from our gut to our brain as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we've been talking about that in a few past episodes as well, about this connection between the gut and the brain. I think we introduced it in a previous episode, but we're going to be talking about it more as well, is the fact that we have three brains. We talk about our head brain, our cephalic brain all the time, and it makes the decisions. It's kind of running the show for most people. But in fact, we forget about our heart. Our heart is a brain as well. And our gut is a brain and actually makes a huge amount of decisions for us. How often have you heard yourself saying, well, what does your gut tell you? Or if we're talking about how do we feel, often that comes from, the courage center, our gut. And I mean, I know from personal experience, if your gut isn't in good condition, then all sorts of things can be happening in your body. Especially we talk a lot about stress. So let's just talk about that for a moment. I'm probably one of those people who wouldn't normally class myself as feeling stressed a lot of the time. I've ditched the anxiety, I've ditched the depression. I don't lead a hugely stressful life, but I know from working with you and, doing more research myself that my body is actually under some stress. Right. And I think a lot of us have a preconceived idea about what stress looks like and what it feels like, but it really depends on our interpretation. So, in your clinical experience, what are some of the most common signs that someone's body is carrying stress or emotional strain, even if they wouldn't necessarily say that they're feeling stressed?
Oh, that word stress. I know. So we have eustress and distress. So stress in forms is actually good for the body. Distress is when the body's out of balance, and that looks different for everybody. And that can be formed from negative things and positive things. So a positive thing is too much exercise. A negative thing is eating poorly and not sleeping enough. But essentially, so stress on the body means underlying inflammation, which could show in headaches. It can show in gastric distress, bowels moving too fast, not enough, blood pressure rising or dropping, and all of this goes along the vagus nerve as well. So it could be in the immune system dysregulation. Swallowing is something that, when we get nervous and our words get stuck in our throat. So all of these sympathetic actions, so the way that our nervous system works, basically, if we get to a point where there's so much activity, no matter which place that comes from, it results in terms that you're probably familiar with, which is fight, flight, and freeze. And so that is also part of our vagus nerve communication, and we refer to it as vagal tone. If it starts to get out of whack and none of these processes work, particularly digestion, so food getting stuck or not moving through our bodies, which could be reflux, heartburn, constipation, diarrhea, bloating, increased urination as well. You think about when you get nervous and anxious, that is another pathway of the vagus nerve. So there's a lot.
Yeah.
Really, it and again, this is naturopathy, it's person-centered care. It depends on what's happening for that person that's sitting in front of me, because someone's symptoms that are affecting them may not affect somebody else. It all depends on, uh, are you into stress, and why? And we need to identify that cause. So,
Yeah. I love that there's a few things that you mentioned there. I love that you're not a one size fits all. And I don't think, I mean, naturopathy, it sounds like, is not a one size fits all. And you're definitely the type of practitioner that isn't like that. You know, how we spent so much time and we continue to spend time in our sessions just fact finding. And, you know, you can't just put a solution. It's not like putting a band-aid over things. It's like what we do with the mind. It's about finding the root cause of things, which obviously is part of the reason I love it. And I'm very glad that you mentioned there's good and bad stress. We've talked about that before in our podcast, is that, like you said at the beginning, oh, that word stress. Yes, we have a negative connotation toward the word stress, but not every stress is normal for everyone. Okay. We're never going to banish it completely, but there's good and bad stress. It's when it becomes chronic that it potentially becomes a problem. There was something else that you were saying there. Like, I think it becomes quite normal. I'll use quotation marks for those of we're going to just listening. All right. For those watching the video, you can see normal. It's a terrible word, but I think we get complacent is probably a better word with some of the symptoms that we feel. You know, we think that, oh, well, it's normal to get a bit of bloating. It's normal to have a bit of heartburn. It's normal to feel a bit of, you know, this or that, wherever it might be. But if this is a constant thing that's happening, especially over time, and I guess especially if it gets worse, then this is our body telling us, right, that there might be something else we need to do to change that. Yeah.
yeah. I love that you've made that connection about what we feel is normal. Because we're just going on about our days. You know, we've got our work, and we've got our families and all these things that we need to do. And a lot of the time, I talk about this a lot, particularly, you know, eating breakfast first in the morning. Cortisol, a primary stress hormone, is what wakes us up in the morning, and it's valuable. We need cortisol,
Yeah.
but don't want is it to be up high for the whole day. But
Yes.
people over time, they make that connection with the cortisol and adrenaline that they're feeling as energy. And this is powering me on. So if I have breakfast, that's going to slow me down. I'm going to feel sleepy, and I'm not going to want to power on with my day. But they're not actually thinking about the way that they're going to feel at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and moving into the evening, and affecting quality of sleep. And this is just one example of how we become familiar with those feelings of stress, and how through accepting those feelings, we end up in fight or flight, particularly when other things start going on for us, you know, like the immune disruption, aging, hormones, you know, all the things that happen. But yeah, it is something that our society allows us to accept as normal.
Yeah.
And until it really starts affecting daily function, which is usually when people will come and see me, because they're just like, I'm doing everything I think I'm supposed to do, not working, and I'm exhausted, and someone's either exhausted or they're too highly active. They can't switch off. So yeah, we get there eventually.
Yeah. And I think this is an interesting point also, that, and something you said there sparked this thought for me, is that what once worked for us doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to work for us. You know, perhaps when we were younger and we didn't eat breakfast, and, you know, suggesting that maybe that wasn't the best thing, but it worked for us at the time, that may not work so good for us now, because our body has changed. We have evolved. We might eat breakfast and we might think that we're eating a healthy breakfast, for example, but is there something in there that, you know, are we educated on that? Do we know how much sugar is in that? Or, Is it not enough sugar? Whatever those questions are. So because advertising, marketing, it plays a big part in this. There's so much information out there. And that's what I hear from a lot of the women that I work with, who are especially around our age. We're I don't like the word battling, but I feel like it sometimes. We're battling with hormone changes, and we've been bombarded with all of this information saying this is right, this is wrong, do this, don't do this. There's so much there. And I think so many people are just looking for someone to say, just please help me, because that hasn't worked for me. And again, this comes back to what you do is not a one size fits all. What did you call it? It's very personable.
Person-centered care.
Person-centered care. Yes, I really loved that. Yeah.
And that is the of
Yeah.
naturopathy. We follow these philosophies, but at the end of the day, and look, we all get there some how differently.
Yeah.
We're all practicing essentially to identify the cause and to remove disturbances to cure. And we're assessing everything from most of your life and how you feel about your life as well.
Yeah.
And it is that person that's sitting in front of us. And look, I'd like to sort of, if we sort of take that back to the vagus nerve again, which is I'm thinking about differences and how snapshot information that's available out there is confusing people. And I see it every day in my clinic. Someone's taking this supplement or performing this action that they think somebody told them was good for them, but they're still not feeling good. And if you're a person who wants to try and improve your vagal tone, so you start to think, oh, maybe there's something in that for me. What is quite popular at the moment is cold plunges and cold exposure. Now, if we look at a lot of the studies that are done in men, they are very different to the studies that are done in women. And not only that, the women who are sort of in that perimenopause, menopausal stage, the type of temperature that we should expose our bodies to is different for men and women. And so if you are, sort of around our age group and you're regularly, cold dipping in water that's 12 degrees or less, you will be creating more stress for your body. Women have a lot more body fat than what men do. So our bodies just don't handle those low temperatures. So you're looking at 15 degrees or above. So little things like that, when somebody is going out of their way to take this action to address their the vagus nerve and their vagal tone. They want to increase their resilience. They want to, snap themselves out of fight or flight and find that rest and relaxation. But actually, through doing that process, if the temperature, of the water is too low, it's going to be having the opposite effect. So, and that really depends on the person.
Yeah. It's interesting that you said, and the words that you use there, snap yourself out of, but you said that fight or flight. And even that, as a neurolinguistics practitioner, obviously I listen to language a lot, and snapping ourselves out of something, or there was another word that came to mind there. But we actually want to, with our body and our mind, why don't we use the gentle approach? If we're pushing or forcing or just the word that I want isn't coming to my mind, of course, right now, but there's nothing wrong with doing this gently to ourselves, especially if we've been in whatever this state is for some time. What usually happens as well is when we snap ourselves into a different state or we make a radical change, it often doesn't stick either, does it?
No.
If we throw all of our toys out of the cot, we just change something completely. It's like those, I haven't been exercising for the last 5 years, but now I've made a decision. I'm going to go to the gym 5 mornings a week. I'm going to get up at 6 a.m., go to the gym 5 mornings a week. I'm going to eat healthy. We clear out our fridge and our pantry and we buy all this new food. And, 2-3 weeks later, if we're lucky, we're back to old habits, because snapping ourselves out, making radical shifts, it's not the way to make lasting change, is it? Whether it be with your brain or your body.
Not at all. And you're absolutely right. And I think sometimes when people come to see me, they expect they're going to leave after one session with that radical change.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, it would be so nice. But we tend to work through, 3 or 4 consults really before we have the crux of it. And when I say snap out, I guess I'm thinking of cold plunge because
Yeah.
it feels a bit snappy.
Yeah, yeah, it
One of
does.
my favorite things.
Me neither.
And it doesn't have to be that extreme. You're exactly right. You don't have to change everything in your life in one day. I always talk about making one change,
Yeah.
and it's a change that you weren't doing yesterday. It's something you weren't doing yesterday. So nutrition. We talk about increasing protein because it's good for so many processes in the body for overall health. And we may not hit optimal protein after one consult, but the fact that the awareness level has increased and you're thinking, oh, maybe I'll add a yogurt or an egg, or again, depending on the person who's sitting in front of me, what they enjoy, what's part of their life, are there any allergies and tolerances? Have to consider all of that as well. It's usually just one thing, and if you can increase that one thing and make it consistent and do it for the rest of your life, that's going to support you for the rest of your life, not just, an 8-week challenge. We talk about creating habits, whether it comes to exercise or self-care, nutrition, these should be embedded as part of our life. So if you can't embed these practices as part of your daily life, then they're unsustainable and aren't realistic, really. So yeah, I love that you talked about that because change is a massive part of what I do.
Yeah.
Being receptive to change. I feel like a lot of people will come and see me for confirmation that what they're doing is right, and somebody else has somehow has got it wrong.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to have those conversations when you say, well, actually, I love that you're trying to exercise, or you're doing these cold plunges, or you're taking these supplements. But I actually think some of that behavior is part of our disturbance to cure that we have to regulate or remove for a short amount of time. So not everything is good for everybody all the time.
Yeah. I love that.
Action's important. Yeah.
Interesting. And you mentioned this earlier as well with regards to exercise. I think look, we know that moving our body, whether you call it exercise, movement, whatever it might be, is good for us, right? We are meant to move. Living a stagnant lifestyle does not support us. But I think often we think of exercise as huffing and puffing and, going to the gym and running and all of these things like that get our heart rate up. And some of these we do because we love doing them. Some of them are good for us, but especially as we age, again, we've said things change. What once worked for us, perhaps in our 20s, may not be so good for us now. And you related stress to that exercise. And I think that's something that, again, comes up, especially with women who listen to this around our age, and they're perhaps put a little bit of weight on, they're still going and huffing and puffing at the gym, but perhaps it's putting more stress on them than is good for them. And I know that I've talked to you about this because, of course, I love to ride, right? I'm a cyclist. But there came a point last year where I felt that the long distances and riding in the hills and that were actually having a detrimental effect on my body. So can you just tell us a little bit about perhaps what might be happening if it's not that we're not doing the right exercise, but maybe what's happening there if we're still following a really cardio high exercise routine?
We put too much emphasis on the exercise itself and not enough on the recovery from the exercise. So the exercise you do is only beneficial if you recover well from it.
Okay.
So we are so used, particularly women, particularly our age group that has grown up through generations of restriction is good, and not eating, and again another buzzword on social media, fasting. People, oh, if I don't eat, it's good for me. But then we ask these massive tasks of our bodies, whether it's cycling through the hills or powerlifting with heavy weights, or even just getting the kids to and from school. And it looks different for everybody. But
Yeah.
if we constantly are depleting our body and we're not putting that nutrition back in, that's going to affect our neurotransmitters, our hormones, our muscles, our bone, and particularly as we enter age groups where our hormones are playing a little roller coaster and eventually depleting, we're losing the ability to maintain muscle, bone, neurotransmitters anyway, and particularly gut health. The vaginal microbiome is being talked about a lot more as well. Even they're starting to talk about a brain microbiome, which is it's a new sort of term that's not really confirmed yet. But look, there's a lot to say about replenishing your body, and replenishing your body is replenishing energy, but also food and nutrition, and making sure we're getting enough, not being in that constant deficit. It's just, and with exercise, you may still be putting that food back in your body, but if in that fight or flight starting to happen and digestion's not going so well, and absorption, like we talk a lot about, the food that we make in meal prep and, I'm eating this amount of protein, but how much are you actually absorbing?
Yes.
And we've got to look at that as well. Are you eliminating toxins? I'm not big, I don't talk about, we don't do detoxes, nothing that you'll find on social media, but we need to give our body rest and tools to be able to detoxify itself. And it just gets a little bit harder as we get older. So that shift in our blood sugar regulation, our energy, our mindset, our sleep gets harder as well. So all of these factors come into play. And yeah, you're right. We just can't burn the candle at both ends anymore. It will catch up to us.
It does, doesn't it?
It's in autoimmune conditions.
Right.
So-
Okay. There's one thing that you said there reminded me of a conversation we had, and that's one reason that I love working with you in particular, is that it's not about elimination, it's about inclusion. So rather than eliminating things from our diet or lifestyle, it's about including the things that are, when I say good for us, like supporting us, I guess is the best way I can explain that.
Yeah. The biggest thing actually on that at the moment is gluten. So he thinks, gluten is bad, bad, bad. And so they remove all grains from their diet. But what we're forgetting is that grains are really good for our gastrointestinal microbiome. And when you remove an entire food group, if you don't have a medical, a physiological reason why you need to remove that, you create a lot of issues without getting benefits, because you didn't really need those benefits in the first place. But yeah, now not everything is good for everybody, and removing whole food groups that restrict our lifestyle and our eating is not always a good thing.
Yeah. Okay. You mentioned sleep in there. And so just again, going back to the vagus nerve, why, and we've sort of touched on this, but why is it such a big deal when it comes to how we digest, our sleep, how our body heals, and even connecting with other people as well?
Yeah. Social connection is massive in health, particularly as we age. With the vagus nerve, it's about telling our body that it's safe to switch off. So we want to go into our parasympathetic nervous system. I think paralyzed, like we want to be able to rest and digest. And sometimes if we don't give our body the tools or the signals to be able to do that, we'll never switch off properly. And that will affect our sleep and our recovery. So much happens with recovery at night. The way our body flushes. There was, I read research just yesterday about how they're talking about the flush that the brain does when it's asleep could be a crucial factor in Alzheimer's. They're sort of arguing at what actually does that, which I think is really cool. But sleep is so important. So important. And if we can't switch off, That's usually one of the first things that I help people with actually is that ability to rest and recover. We're really getting on top of stress. And again, that looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
Is it a lifestyle thing? Are they on screens too late? Are they worried about something? Is it that their body doesn't have the tools to be able to make their serotonin, melatonin? Are they not exposing themselves to light? Is it inflammation? Is it an iron deficiency?
Yeah.
So many things.
We start just ticking them off, don't we?
No. And this is how it's really, really difficult, even with the vagus nerve, because it does, it does affect all those organs. There are some things that we can do to make sure, not just cold exposure. That's probably the most extreme that we can help our bodies switch off, and it can be quite simple. And one of the things, instead of putting your body into like a full cold water immersion, splashing your face with cold water actually do the same thing. Putting the shower on to a little bit cooler just before you get out. The vagus nerve sort of, like I said, connects the brain and the gut, but it actually moves sort of down the neck between the ear. So music is soothing your vagus nerve. We're also, if we gargle or hum or sing, so if you've ever been to a yoga class and it's the one where you do the deep throat humming, we're accessing that vagus nerve. It's like we're massaging it and telling it it's okay to not about switching off, but it's about the ability to send messages. So that's what it's for. It's a nerve that is sending and receiving messages. So when we lose vagal tone, we lose the ability to send those messages. And that's what things like exercise, massage, gargling is going to support. Meditation, breath work, which I'm sure you've done a lot of as well, that's also supporting the vagus nerve. It's about it all working together, really.
Yeah. And as with everything, whether it's nutrition, movement, meditation, all of those types of things, it's about consistency, right? It's like you said, we want to make this a lifelong change, not just an 8-week challenge or I'll do it this year and then I don't have to do it again. This is actually something that is supporting our long-term health. I've got a goal that I want to hit minimum 95 years old, right? Anything after 95, that's the cream on the top. But that's but I don't want to be doing it in a wheelchair or inside my house, not being able to leave. So, it's one of the biggest reasons I came to you now is to say, okay, what do I need to do now? And I don't get it right all the time. And I'm the first one to admit that. And it's taking me a while to put some of those changes into place because I'm human also. But I want to make those changes now because I want the next half of my life to look a certain way. So it's about saying, right, what are the changes that I need to put into place now, gradually, gently, shocking my system so that I can live that life that I see for myself.
Yeah. And I love that approach. And it's right there that I see that such extended thought. Usually everyone just wants to deal with the now. But that's exactly, that person-centered care. We're also about prevention and proactive healthcare. So it's about learning how to support our bodies so we age well. And particularly the way that we transition for women through hormonal transition can actually have a massive impact on what those other 30-ish years look like post-menopause. So the fact that you're asking these questions now, we're putting these things in place. And I'll tell you a little secret. I didn't always get it right. I can help.
Of course, you're a human too, right?
What I do, right?
Yeah.
And it's the irony of the type of effort that I have to ask from my body to do the research and the study and be a mum and work and pay the bills. It's that's not very good naturopathy, but I understand what I need to do to replenish and recover from that. But even still, if you have all this understanding, there are still more questions.
Oh,
And
yeah.
those are
The
questions.
more we know, the more questions there is.
And it's changing all the time because
Yeah.
research is permanent. It's ongoing. It doesn't stop. Our world is dictating how well, the problems that are arising. You think of the viruses that are around it and the impact it's had on our world and our health and what's coming out of that. Little things like again, I'm just going to bring you back to the vagus nerve.
Yeah.
Omega-3 fatty acid. That is really something that you can include in your daily diet. It's crucial for myelination, so the coating of your nerves. Some people think they still have that mindset fat is bad, and they out these broad spectrum of oils, and that's what I aim for, is a broad spectrum of fats. We don't want too much saturated fat. Doesn't matter if it's coconut oil, doesn't matter how good it is, because that can do bad things with our microbiome. We want, a range of mono unsaturated fats as well, but particularly omega-3s that can be anti-inflammatory. They're very easy to include in your diet as well. And when you sort of become aware of them and you can include them, let's talk about olive oil, flax seeds, chia seeds, fish, oily fish, which again is not appropriate for everybody.
Yeah.
There's heavy metals, depending what we're doing
Yeah.
there. We might want to use plant-based omegas as well. Depends on what's happening for that person. But one little thing like making sure that you enjoy a broad spectrum of oils, and particularly focusing on omega-3s, can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
you're drinking it.
Yeah, and like you say, one thing at a time. And that's one thing that I've done this week is after seeing you on Monday, I'm having a protein smoothie in the morning. I've added flaxseed to it. I've done one little thing. That'll be my thing for the week. I'll build the habit. Next week it might be putting some flaxseed oil on a salad, or for some people it might be, okay, well, I actually don't eat any fish. Maybe I'll have one fish meal a week. It's not this go hard or go home kind of attitude. It's just what's one small thing that I can include. Remember, it's about inclusion as opposed to elimination.
Yeah.
Well, at least that's the way I like to think about it. That's going to help. And that in the work that I do as well, this is what it's all about, is it's not about getting you to do more. In fact, we're looking at getting you to do less and be more. That we're a human being, not a human doing side of things.
Take up more space.
Yeah.
Don't shrink. It's time to grow and to continue to grow throughout your life. And continually ask yourself those questions and challenge the norm. Going back to breakfast, everyone thinks we have to have, eggs or cereal, like breakfast foods. You don't have to have that at all. You can have spaghetti bolognese for breakfast. And you think a meal that, one of my favorite things to have for breakfast is actually a lentil curry.
Really?
In my stomach, I enjoy it. I look forward to it. That'll change. But for me at the moment, I know I'm supporting my microbiome. I'm getting lots of energy. It's delicious. It's I don't like sort of sweet in the morning. I prefer something a bit more, I guess on the savory spectrum.
Yeah.
Sitting outside in the morning sun, having a nice warm lentil curry with rice.
I'm going to give that a try. I know we talked about my favorite meal, or one of my favorite meals, is a homemade bento box. Piece of salmon, a little bit of rice, seaweed salad, and some miso. And I often make that for myself for lunch. But the suggestion was, well, why don't you have that for breakfast? Because it's, all the things that we're working toward is bringing that in at breakfast time and setting me up for the day. Because, that's the thing. If we're finding that we're crashing at 3:00 or another time, or, for me, it's about having to have naps in the afternoon. I'm like, that's really disruptive. So how do we counteract that? How do I feed my body better to support myself when I need it in the day? So I love the idea of just changing things up. And if it's I know for me in the past, it's been a mindset thing. Like I'm not a cereal person.
Yeah.
Don't get me started on shop cereal, but
That's
um,
another episode.
that's a whole other topic. But, you know, I've thought about that and, oh gosh, I couldn't eat, a bowl of spaghetti in the morning. I'm like, well, why not? That's just my mind telling me a story,
Yeah.
right? So if it's going to help me, then I've got to change the way that I think about it, and
Yeah.
that's what we talk about here, changing the brain, learning how to think differently. It can take time, there's usually resistance. Change is hard for everyone. But
Absolutely.
we look back at our past and ask ourselves, at what point did change not work out for us? Most of us, if we really stop and think about it, will go, you know what? It never really did me any harm making
Mhm.
that change. And if we start to just reframe and think differently about it, then we'll feel that ripple go out in other ways as well.
Yeah. I love that. I love that you're doing with people because
Thank you.
there's not enough opportunities to question our norms. And sometimes it can be really beneficial. Like if I hadn't questioned my norms, I wouldn't be in the career that I'm in. There'd be so many decisions I wouldn't have made in my life. And, change can be uncomfortable and uncertain,
Yes.
but it can also be so exciting. Like switching that public speaking, for example, switching that anxiety to excitement and
Yeah.
telling yourself I'm excited about it,
Yeah.
um, you know, is
Yeah.
a changer.
It can be a game changer. All right, I've got one last question for you. But before that, because I did sort of promise this at the beginning, can you just give us a little bit of a snapshot about what does it mean to be a record holding power lifter? And because I think
If you were the first one to get there and you got lucky.
well, I doubt that. But for those of you watching the video, you might be looking at Emily and going, what do you mean she's a power lifter? Like, doesn't a power lifter look a certain way? Again, challenge the norm, think differently. Just can you give us a short snapshot of what it's like to be a power lifter?
Well, I got here organically.
Yeah.
So essentially, I used to work at a job that was long hours and I started getting a lot of shoulder and wrist pain. And then I went to the gym and I just started asking myself more questions like, what's that person doing over there? And what's that person doing over there? And eventually I got to a place where I'm like, why are no women in this gym? And so I went on a mission to find, like, surely there's other women that enjoy strength training as much as I do. And I did manage to find some amazing women, and they weren't far from home, and some men as well. It's where women and men, all the sexes together. Actually, we should talk about all of them because we
Yes.
don't want to put people in a box. And powerlifting is definitely a space where there are no boxes. But it's a whole bunch of people together who are just working towards a common goal, which is being as strong as you possibly can be. So obviously you're assessed against, your age, your weight class, and the way that you lift.
Mhm.
But it's just honestly, well, because I MC as well, and the age groups that I see on the competition platform. So I'm out of a gym called 618 Barbell, and the competitions that we run, there could be someone 15 years and someone 75 years in
Wow.
the same competition. And so there's really no age restriction. And for me, it was just a natural progression of, when you're strength training, you measure your strength gain through a one rep max. And why not do it on a platform with people clapping for you?
Yeah. If only we could do more things like that, right?
Exciting. And, it's led to me becoming a national referee. So I'll be heading to Queensland, Brisbane in August
Wow.
for an intensive few days, usually nearly 400 people. Like that's how big powerlifting can be.
Yeah.
Um, I'm very proud of my powerlifting achievements. I'm not competing at the moment because there's so much else on, but I do still train in a powerlifting style because I feel like it's It covers all the big compound lifts and with some accessories. It keeps me interested.
Mhm.
And it's easy to modify. I have a coach who does all that for me. So Jack Carissa, she's amazing.
Yep.
Uh, she's been supporting me for a long time. And honestly, at the end of the day, you know, that 3 o'clock when you think you're exhausted and you set your goal. So I put it in the diary. I'm going to the gym. And you're like, oh, I'm so tired. I can't be bothered doing this. You'll be surprised what your body is capable of doing, even when your mind is tired.
Oh, yeah. It's
You
the
know,
mind that
sometimes
gets in the way, right? It is our mind that gets in the way.
absolutely, and it's just become part of my life. So,
Love that.
whilst I'm not, so I have different goals. I set a goal of doing a bare knee squat, and that's actually what got me the world record. Well, it will be a full world records, which was surpassed really quickly. But that's fine.
We don't, no, we've cut that bit out. We just did with I've got 4 world records. But that's it.
The
You-
bunch of nationals, and
Yeah.
it's the people bring me back and the connection.
Uh,
But yeah, so
Thank you for sharing that. And you know, you post things on socials from time to time. It's pretty impressive to watch. So I just wanted to share a little bit of you personally with our audience because it's pretty impressive. And you know, any of us can do anything that we want to. You know, I might sit here going, "Oh my goodness, I could never be a powerlifter. I could never do what you do." Well, not straight away, of course. I don't know what you lift, but it looks like a lot.
it's a lot.
But you know, it's like anything, we can train ourselves, we can train our body, we can train our minds.
Mhm.
It's about that consistency. It's about putting
Absolutely.
ourselves in a position where we might feel uncomfortable. Well, I'm just going to say it, we are going to feel uncomfortable to begin with, right? Coming to see you, making changes in my nutrition, my movement, even my mindset around health. Yeah, it was uncomfortable, still is from time to time, but again, we've got to look at our why. We've got to look at for what purpose. It's my favorite question. For
Yeah.
what purpose am I doing this? Anything can be possible if it's something that we actually want. We
Mhm.
simply need the right guidance. You said you have a coach. You're my health coach. I coach people with their mind. So, you know, it's about having that support as well. So let's just wrap this up, Em. If you could leave our listeners with one simple message, and I know there could be a lot, but one simple message about the mind-body connection, what would you love them to remember?
If you're starting to feel a bit flat and yucky, try and pay attention to that inner voice. What are you saying to yourself? Is there a lot of I must do this, I need to do this, I'm doing this for other people, why aren't they thanking me?
Mm.
We really got to start questioning why we're doing what we're doing. Because some people will never really question that, and they'll just continually get to a point of burnout. Because we're just not paying attention to that inner voice. And look, if you're not sure how to listen to it, then like the example you gave, seek a professional who does this as a job to help coach you and guide you. Yeah, I have a powerlifting coach. I have academic supervisors.
Yep.
There's always somebody near me who's helping me with my thoughts. It's not about what I know. It's about learning to open your mind, be a critical thinker, and question. Maybe there's something I could change, and maybe it's about time I started to listen to that inner voice because it can bring you great happiness.
It can, can't it? I
Mhm.
love that. That is such great advice, and it goes perfectly with everything we talk about here on the Brain Changes. You know, being more mindful, having more presence, asking more questions, opening up that critical thinking, rather than just doing what we've always done or what everybody else says we've done, or staying in our comfort zone, as we call it. So I love that. Thank you so much. So much gold in this conversation today. Emily, if people are looking to work with you, your practice is called Praxis Blooming. You're located in West Lakes in South Australia here. And we will put all of your details in the show notes as well, if
Great.
people are wanting to catch up with you. Thank you so much for being our guest on the Brain Changes today. I've absolutely loved this conversation. I hope you have too, listeners. And remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. Bye for now. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Brain Changes. We hope you've enjoyed the conversation today. Please like and subscribe to stay up to date with all the latest episodes. Our mission is to reach as many people as possible to help them revolutionize the way they think so they can change their brain and create profound transformation. Please help us broaden our reach by sharing this episode with someone you know will benefit. And remember to tag us on socials at Moonbeam Monday and leave a review. And remember, when you change your mind, you change your life. We'll catch you next time for another episode of The Brain Changes.